This video demonstrates how to install a 3-node database cluster for DX NetOps Performance Management. Before beginning, ensure all servers have the required RPMs installed according to the official documentation. For this demonstration, the compressed installation file has already been downloaded from Broadcom support and staged on the first node. We will start by installing the essential files required to prepare the environment for the data repository installation. Our first step is to decompress the installation file. Since we are preparing the environment for the data repository, run the install.dr.bin file. In this demonstration, we will select option 1 for English. Next, review the installer navigation instructions before pressing enter to proceed. Next, review the host evaluation results. You must correct any critical errors and restart the installation. You may notice a warning regarding the required number of CPU cores. While we will proceed since this is a demonstration system, you should never ignore this in a production environment. Even if the installer allows you to continue, a warning indicates that a requirement is not optimal, which could lead to performance bottlenecks or system instability. We will hit enter to continue. Enter the location for the Vertica RPM and supporting files. Note, this is not the directory where the database repository is located. Keep this directory even after the data repository installation is complete, to reference the setup options used during the installation. For this demonstration, the default is accepted. The extraction begins. Note the path to the extracted directory, then press enter to complete the installation. The next step is to install the data repository. This process involves updating the installation properties file to match your system requirements, and running a mandatory validation script. Once the configuration is verified, we will trigger the final repository installation. Navigate to the directory where the RPM and support files were extracted. Then edit the drinstall.properties file. In the properties file, locate the DB hostnames field. Delete the 3 existing placeholder entries and replace them with the actual hostnames of your cluster nodes. It is critical to format this list as a single line, separating each hostname with a comma and ensuring there are no spaces between the entries. While you have the drinstall properties file open, it is essential to review and configure several key parameters to ensure a successful installation. Taking the time to verify these settings now will prevent common installation failures later in the process. First, pay close attention to the DB admin Linux user home property, which defaults to export dr-admin. The Vertica installer will fail if this directory does not exist. Before proceeding, you must either manually create this directory or update the property to point to an existing path on your system. Next, review the DB data dir and DB catalog dir properties, which define the locations for the database data and catalog, respectively. While the default root directories are sufficient for a demonstration environment, enterprise-level installations often require these to be hosted on separate mount points. Using dedicated partitions allows the database to scale properly as it grows and prevents the root partition from reaching capacity. If you are using separate mount points, ensure you update these properties to reflect the correct paths. The next set of properties includes DB name, DB admin Linux user, and DB password. These define the database instance name, the administrator's username, and the associated password. While you may choose to keep the default values, it is critical to document these credentials accurately. These values are required for subsequent installation steps and are indispensable for future troubleshooting or when contacting support. Because many organizations change these values to comply with security policies, you cannot rely on defaults as a fallback. Ensure all 3 values are recorded securely before saving and closing the file. After configuring the properties file, execute the drvalidate.sh script to verify your parameter settings and ensure seamless communication between the data repository servers. Run the command using the -p flag followed by the path to your drinstall.properties file. During execution, the script will inquire about SSH authentication. you may either provide the path to an existing public key or, as shown in this demonstration, allow the script to set up passwordless SSH between nodes in the cluster. You may be prompted for the root or sudo password for each node to facilitate the setup. Monitor the output as each node is verified, ensuring you resolve any identified errors and rerun the script until it returns a successful status before proceeding to the final installation. Once the validation script confirms your environment is ready, you can proceed with the actual installation by running the drinstall.sh script, using the -p flag, followed by the path to your drinstall.properties file. As with the previous step, the installer will prompt you for an SSH public key. For this demonstration, we will decline and instead provide the root or sudo password for each node when prompted. After the installer displays the host mappings and begins the task, you may be prompted for a password on some of the cluster nodes. Enter the password. The script will then distribute the Vertica binaries across the cluster, a process that may take several minutes depending on your network speed. For the video, the installation has been accelerated. Once the files are in place, the script will automatically create the database instance, start the service on each node, and install the necessary database packages. The process concludes with a final validation check. If any errors are reported at this stage, resolve them and rerun the script to ensure the data repository is fully operational. At this point, the data repository installation is complete. To verify that the database is functional, log into the first node and switch to the database administrator user. The default for this installation is dradmin. Launch the Admin Tools utility. Then select View Database Cluster State to confirm the database status is listed as up. After clicking OK, you can verify the specific nodes within the cluster by navigating to the Configuration menu, selecting View Database, and choosing your database name. This will display the IP addresses for all associated hosts. Once confirmed, click OK and exit the Admin Tools interface.